Welcome to today's self-reflection session. My name is Rich Hebron, and I will be guiding you through this duration. Now, why don't we begin, as we always do, with 5 minutes of breathing. Just simply breathing, right? So I will set a timer here for 5 minutes. Right now. So we're just going to breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Just relax. If you need to, count in, count out, right? 1, 2, 2. Ignore any sounds that you might hear in the background. Acknowledge them, but just move on. right. So that was 5 minutes of just breathing. How do you feel? Are you like me and a little watery-eyed? Just breathe. Breathing, especially deep breaths, can really help calm any significant emotions that we're experiencing at the time. Something this week has been quite interesting for me. One of the most life-changing and monumental events in my life, I would say. I just returned from Paris. And so while I was in Paris, primarily what I was there to do was to take photos of designs on building facades. I'll get to that later. But I was walking around the Notre Dame Cathedral. It started on fire a few years ago, and they put the fire out, but they're doing a lot of reconstruction. So I'm around the building and reading, kind of the timeline and the fire and the reconstruction and what they're doing. And then I get a text message, right? So this is maybe 2 in the afternoon in Paris. I get a text message from someone in my phone who's labeled Loud Kev, and explicitives and news article, right? The place that I work, so I bartend at a bar restaurant during the fall about 3 to 4 times a week. The rest of the year about 2 to 3 times a week. And I've been working there since 2010. I worked there for 4 months in 2010, and I came back in 2014 and have been working there ever since. I love this place. It's a magical, amazing, wonderful place for so many different people. It serves so many different communities, and it started on fire. It started on fire. It was a big fire, and not a lot of information was available at the time. There was a firefighter that ended up in critical condition, and so there's a lot of uncertainty. And then I got a text message from another person who I haven't spoken to in a while, but also used to work at Lincoln Station, and that's when I knew it was major. And so I had the mindset that I cannot do anything about this right now. I'm in Paris. I'm going to keep it off my mind or not give it a lot of weight on my mind until I return. It's hard to do. And so then I returned, and the fire, originally, the thought was everything burned down and all those memories, all that history, all that community is gone. The fire started in the kitchen, either electric or gas issue, and a lot of damage, devastating damage, and we'll have to restore. It'll be like at least 6 months minimum. At the same time, the firefighter, who's in critical condition, fell through a skylight on the roof. It fell about 2 to 3 stories, and he passed away. And so it's been just so heartbreaking this week. just tragic and all around just a terrible situation. Terrible. Yeah. And so it's weighed heavily on my mind. And all the people that it affects, and in particular the firefighter. And so this week has been quite reflective. It's also been very what do you call that? It's been very galvanizing for us to rally together and make something better out of a tragic situation and help those who need it most. And the support from communities have just been phenomenal, really touching. And so it's been on my mind, and there's nothing I can really, you can't change an event, right? And this is why we go back to the things that we have been doing and do consistently on a daily basis, is taking the time for reflection so that you can handle these life events and situations with calmness, directness, and clearness, where you can take steps forward and not be overwhelmed with emotions. And also the understanding that you cannot change it. You cannot change what happened. You cannot change what happened to, a space or people. And so you just have to, use what you've trained your mind to do, and that's acknowledge things and proceed forward. So this is a great example today of why we do these things, so you can be stable and a source of comfort to those around you who have also been affected, right? And what I've been doing since is working on my book, my fourth book. Right now it's called Nuance and Notes. And I've taken this kind of time to really dive into it more. So I've been working on putting these effects on these photos. I took over 5,300 photos of just designs in Paris. And then I narrowed it down to 833 on the plane ride home. And I've been making them now black and white and putting an effect on each of them. And it's been really frustrating with the program and, computer space, or I don't know. It's been frustrating because I would take one approach. Okay, that's not going to work. Let's restart. Do it again. And so today, I will not be writing. I'll just be kind of posing these questions. What I have found, so I have to go through each of these one by one, and I'm sure there's a clever way to go about it using Adobe Illustrator, but the time it takes to figure that out, and I've Googled different ways of how to figure this out. At the end of the day, it's gonna just do it one by one. there's only 833 of them. It's a very finite amount anyways. But my computer has gotten slower, and it's been frustrating, and I've been experiencing with all those other emotions, right? The place I worked at burned, so I'm no longer working there. And then on top of that, a firefighter passed during the event, which is, it's awful. So I'm dealing with kind of that whole headspace, and then at the same time, the computer applications aren't working quite well, and I'm just like, and it's becoming really slow, really slow. I did like maybe 300 right off the bat, and I was like, yeah. But then everything started happening. I had an issue, and then I went over to the Apple store, because an issue like this happened before with Illustrator. Illustrator had these like hidden files somewhere in my computer, and it was taking up all the space. So we figured that out, but there's still other things. And I'm going one by one, and it's slow. And instead of listening to music or a podcast or a TV in the background or a movie in the background, like I just don't like all that noise. So, but I've been finding without something else to do, I feel really restless, and I'm not patient. That's kind of been a theme this week is my lack of patience is causing me more stress and anxiety than it needs to be, than I need to have, right? So how do I calm that down, right? So last night I just talked to a friend on the phone for an hour, and we're just talking back and forth, and I'm just like going through this and going one by one. And so that's what we'll do today during this session is I'll still pose questions for you, and you can then write and be a part of it. And we'll do it while I'm working on this project here, so that we can do everything so we can everything works out. It's just tedious stuff, right? Let me have it all set up. So the first thing I want you to think about and write is, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? It's certainly something that's been on my mind this week. Again, there are infinite things to be grateful for. Let's think and write about one. I'm grateful to have gone to Paris. Especially right before this situation. The book I'm working on is called Nuance and Notes, and I've been really fascinated, obsessed with designs on building facades. I've gotten really into design and how every little thing, like we've discussed here, every decision leads to a bigger whole, a bigger overall, right? And so everything matters, every detail, every small little aspect. And what I have found, this started like a year ago. A year and a half ago, I had a near-death experience when I got assaulted by 3 guys with Uzi guns. And they took all my stuff, And then I had to kind of start over again. But the realization that life can end at any moment, nothing is guaranteed, it makes you think more about what you want out of life, how you want to live life, the actions you need to take. But I found that while taking all these small steps and being, that was what I was about for, since 2018, when the prior near-death experience happened for me. And I just take small steps every day to get to the point. And then this happened, and then I went full throttle. I was going too fast. And so then about a year ago, I had some kind of conversations with friends, and kind of the theme or what came out of it was slow down. Slow down, take a step back. Because at the same time, I've been doing the podcast, Rich Conversations, nonstop. And it was getting kind of exhausting, I would say. Or just, I don't know, I was just putting things out. Took a step back. I started hanging out more with my friends with their bands, and just kind of documenting and recording studio sessions and performances. And we've gotten so close. It was cool to see other artists and other talented people from, to be surrounded, be more with other people rather than just myself kind of doing things. And it was I wasn't seeing the kind of progress I wanted to see, or the results or the outcomes. So I took a step back. I stopped doing the podcast and then started hanging out with them, and that led me to learn so much. It's hard to learn when your mind is closed or you're not curious. And I kind of had felt that I was getting that way. And I then started going to hotel lobbies, and I would just look around, observe. And just like at a bar or restaurant, every little thing is telling you something. It's communicating something larger, right? Something small on its own isn't significant. But collectively, everything becomes significant, right? And it's kind of like our world, right? As individuals, we're not significant, right? But if we come together and we act collectively, then it's so powerful. It's so much bigger. And so I go to these hotel lobbies. I got really into light fixtures. And so I would just keep going around to places and admire light fixtures. And I went to Mexico City earlier this year, and I was so fascinated with the light fixtures there. I was taking all these pictures and then taking photos. I would take photos of all these little details. And then in Miami, I would go on I was in South Beach, and I went into every single hotel on the Strip and just took photos of the light fixtures. But it led me then, right towards the end of that, checking something right now. Okay. Towards the end of that, I realized I could do a book with a bunch of designs the way I had the previous book. The previous book I did was just taking photos of interesting scenes and designs, more geometric, and then recreating them in Adobe Illustrator and using the primary colors to create these pop art kind of images. And I could do the same thing with this, but more like nuanced, more detailed, and then make them black and white. And I'm really grateful that I started, that Ignite kind of came to be, because it's been a while since I put out a book, because I've been so focused on recording. I've done nearly 300 episodes of the podcast, but with the podcast, you're just putting something out all the time, and it's not very conceptual, or there's not like a project that you can just give your creative energy to. And so that's been fun with this, is having something now that's more depth and conceptual and deeper, that it's like having fun again. But I would then practice in New York. Went to New York, went all around New York, Manhattan and Brooklyn, looking for interesting designs. The designs that appeal to me are ones that kind of reflect my philosophy, and that's inspired and motivated by nature. And so a lot of the designs are more floral, more detailed, more ornamentation. And then it's like late 19th century. And then what happened in the 20th century is the modern art movement kind of went stripped down. You get the Bauhaus movement, and everything became very geometrical and stripped down of its ornamentation. And I'm kind of all over the place here right now. And so I've been looking for designs that use that more like nature perspective, because that's how, like, the philosophy that I live is more rooted in what is natural versus artificial, right? With nature, it's flexible. Things that are alive bend, right? They're flexible, they're fluid, they flow, whereas things that are rigid and stiff are dead, right? So you apply this to if you apply this to life, if you have very rigid, very not closed, but if you have unbending perspectives and opinions about the world, you're going to break. You are very breakable, and you won't grow much. Whereas if you're more flexible, you can kind of adapt and go with the flow more, and when life events happen, you can, be agile with them. You're more anti-fragile. And so I went to New York. Then I went on tour in London for 5 days with Hobo Johnson and Bone Lane. And in the evenings, I would go to the shows, and I would record all the shows, and be there at like sound check, and then we'd kind of go out afterwards. And then during the day, I would go around London and try to take photos. Not a lot of photos in London, though, which makes me think this is like the bigger part of the project, is like all these designs, all these small details, they add up to the culture of a region or space. It affects people. Now, whether you're conscious of it or not, every little thing is affecting you and your energy, and so you ask yourself what to and then so I would so I'm going around taking these photos. New York really didn't have a lot. London, I was surprised, didn't have a lot. Because here are these major cities, and they really don't have the designs or the aesthetic I was looking for, with more of this nature and more of this like ornamentation. It's been Chicago. Chicago has this stuff. Louis Sullivan is an architect from the late 19th century who used kind of that nature concept. And then I knew Paris would, because I'd been to Paris before, and just the culture, I know exactly I'm going to find design. So then when I was in London, I was actually planning a day to go to Paris, and then it would have cost me like $100 extra to just fly direct round trip and stay a week. Sorry, I feel like my mind's all over the place, which it kind of is. Multitasking, not a phenomenal. But to get to the like bigger point, with life, it's these nuances that add up and that create the whole and that make things interesting. A lot of the architecture that's going up around me in Chicago looks all the same. It's cheap and boring, and there's a few different reasons why that is so. One, after World War II, people just needed housing, right? Places to live. So you have that. In America, things are centered around cars rather than walking. So people don't pay attention, are less likely to pay attention to the details of buildings. And third is, with capitalism, the places that are going up, the places that are being built, the homes that are being built are built to sell, not to live or commit a long period to. So why would you spend all the money on all these details and all making it even more beautiful and put more thought into it if you're planning to resell it? You know, you're just trying to maximize the amount of time and value and to sell it. So those are some reasons why. But if we allow if we design buildings around us that are cheap and boring and communicates that long-term doesn't matter, just think about right now. Think about what we're getting out of it as an individual. There's a lack of commitment overall. And so that affects the culture. Like, if everything around you is telling you through design that you don't have to commit, then it bleeds into kind of the thought process of individuals. I'm gonna feel like I've been talking for a little bit, so I'm gonna hand it over to you guys. So I want you to think about some nuances, some details around you that you appreciate, whether it's where you live or your favorite places. Maybe extra care that goes into service where you go. Think about that. Think about that and write about that. But essentially, the book I'm working on is I'm working on these Paris designs, but I also have Chicago ones, and New York and London. But I'm going to use these ones first. But it's about putting thought into the world, like thought into your life, right? If we're not willing to put thought into our lives, we're not willing to put thought into our architecture, and we're not willing to put thought into our community, and everything seems stripped and generic. I think the world is more beautiful when we show our uniqueness, and that's through our creativity and thought, and through the details of the actions that we take. So what are some things you appreciate around you with the nuances? So I've just been going through these images one by one and putting the effect on them. And then I'm going to have them all together and then go through my favorite ones, narrow it down. That's what I'm really excited to do too, is have them all together and then go through them all. It's going to be fun. That's fun to me. I want you to think about patience. Where's an area in your life where you could give more patience to? Something I've been thinking about is how in today's world everything is about instant, right? From the results we want in life to, apps on our phones to get things instantly. Our culture has become one of instantaneous patience. Our culture has become one of instantaneous, but if we have our expectations set at instant, right? We're just going to be stressed and anxious very often because that's not necessarily how life works or nature works, right? You plant a seed, you have to care and nurture for it, and then eventually it will blossom and provide fruit, right? But if we plant a seed and then we're just angry that it hasn't blossomed yet, we're suffering, right? So it's how can we dial that back, right? How can we be more patient in life? I think patience would do us all really good. If we apply it more and more. Like these images I'm working on right now, it's a little slow. My computer's a little slow. But instead, why don't we use this time to talk to a friend or to do a self-reflection session? Yeah, where's an area of your life where you could use more patience? Whether it's with something you're working on or with people that you're working with or people who you love. Patience. That's probably one of the rarest commodities today. Patience. Surround yourself with patient people. I'm grateful for a lot of patience that people have shown me. The next question what is something you're working on that fills you with joy? Do you have a project you're working on that fills you with joy? Something you can really dive into and let your mind be consumed by it. You can't wait to do anything else. You don't want to do anything else. What's something you're working on that you're involving your whole being into? Yeah, this helps me relax a little bit. Helps me be more patient. Next question to think about. What's something you want to do before you pass? Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. We come into this world and clock's already ticking. And if we don't think about that fact, then we can let our lives pass us by. It's not a pleasant thought, but the thinking about it and then taking action from it creates beauty. And so think about something you really want to do before the clock strikes midnight on our lives. You know, it can seem hypothetical, but it's real. It's real. Do you think that firefighter who passed earlier this week, you know, did he think this morning is the last time I woke up? Is this the last time I'm going to see the sunrise? Is this the last time I'm going to eat breakfast? And I think when we take that perspective and think deeper about it, every moment becomes more meaningful with the things that we do and also the people we spend time with. The person I spoke with yesterday talked about something he really wanted to do before he died. And that was go like fish oysters out of the water and eat them. He has kind of an obsession with oysters. And sure enough, he was on a trip in South Carolina and he did it. It can be something simple, it can be something dramatic, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're thinking about it. If you're not thinking about it, then you get zero, right? Anything multiplied by zero is zero. That's why we don't want to put zeros on the board. Some of these designs are so sexy. I'm so excited to share them. Yeah, so I went to Paris, but it was, maybe traveling is one of the things that you would like to do. The Paris trip, every time I go on a trip, it's not vacation to me. It's not relaxing. It's not relaxing to obsessively walk around the streets in different neighborhoods of Paris in the rain and, 50-degree cold weather, and your hands are like numb, but you have to have the phone in your hand to do it. It's not relaxing, but I got 5,300 design photos that I'm going to use on my project. The only time I really am on vacation is when I'm in Wisconsin during a planting season on the farm, just out in the open field. Just go up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah, that's always a check-in with life. That's when I'm there on the farm. Yeah, so Paris, it was the work. It was a work trip. It's interesting time for sure. Always learning. You know, whenever I'm going anywhere, it's like having an open mind to absorb the information, the data around us. Let's take a moment again to just breathe. Write about the last time you felt supported by another person. Support can mean a number of different things. But what was that like? There are moments of our lives where we need others' help. We need to be with other people. And instead of putting on this mentality like we just do it all by ourselves, put everything on our shoulder, right? We need others. And others can be really helpful to us. You don't have to go throughout the world alone. When's the last time you felt really supported? Yeah, I've just been breaking this down smaller and smaller bits. Instead of just doing all the photos immediately right away, I've had to exert patience and just do a little bit at a time, just little chunks at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. All right. Why don't we end there? Just this next week, really think about moments. They're not guaranteed. And so fill those moments with things that bring you joy and love and positive energy and people who do the same. Surround yourself with people that do the same. Life can be really beautiful. But it helps if you take the right steps and right actions to be a better version of yourself, and so that you can help others and connect with others and be a part of the world together. It's not about us individually, it's about us collectively, right? There's nothing significant about you and I on our own, but we're very significant together. So, have a great week.